Hi, it's Wave, and this is a writing challenge that I do every once in a while where I basically write like the author for 30 days, and this time I chose Rachel Hawkins. The reason why I chose her was because I finished up my revision, which I was so excited about and all that, so I decided to give myself a break. Around like less than 3 weeks into my break, I had this itch to write, but I still wanted to give myself more time away from my novel while my friend critiques it and all that. So she's still roasting it, which I'm happy about. But at the moment, I just wanted to practice on my writing skills because I know from last year's experience of taking a long break, my skills became so dull and I really was doubting myself so much. So I decided to pick an author, and Rachel Hawkins came up because in my list of authors I wanted to do, she was the one that I already started doing some research on and all that, which funny enough was actually quite difficult to find. So I did a little more research and then I just worked with what I have. She's the author who did the Hexhall series, and that's actually the series I got into when I was in middle school. And I picked it up from the library and I was so intrigued with the summary and the book cover. I read the first book, and then last year I think it was, or the year before, I actually finished off the series. So I had a huge years of gap in between, but I remember that I actually enjoyed her writing a lot. So I decided to write like her for 30 days and see where it can go and build my skills while working on another book just for fun, and then later on we'll publish it. Now I do have rules for this challenge. It's just three simple rules just to make it easy on myself, and also have a limit to not go overboard and crazy with the challenge because a lot can happen in 30 days. So the rule number one is attempt to follow the author at least once. I try doing it every single day. If you watch my Maggie's Developer video, watch that first. And if you already have, then you know why I end up changing this rule to this one. My second rule is to follow any additional advice she has for authors or any tips that she has. And also with limited amount of resources that I have, if she has something that is like out of my budget or something that I can't do, like say traveling because of the way things are, then I have to work around with it or make adjustments. And my last rule is don't follow any self-harming routines, like anything that's physical or mental, because there's some authors that go pretty nuts. So the core of her writing, she is a morning riser. Now finding like the exact time is quite difficult to find. I checked on YouTube multiple times in areas, and the closest I can find was she mentioning that she wakes up like 6 something, and then around 7:15ish, that's when she starts writing. And what's interesting about her routine is that when she does writing, she writes 20-minute sprints. So basically similar to the Pomodoro technique, but she likes doing a burst at a time because she can't sit still and work for like an hour or like long hours, like for instance Stephen King, which I also did a video about too. So for her 20-minute sprints, she does 3 rounds. So 3 rounds of 20 minutes is an hour. And in between those sprints, she gives herself a 5 to 10 minute break. Her goal is to get 2,000 words in, and if not, she gives herself a 30-minute break and continues on doing the sprints until she gets it, or calls it a day. So very flexible. And one of the things she actually mentioned about herself is that once she gets close to noon and she can't hit the 2,000 word count for that day, then she knows she's not gonna get it done in the afternoon. So from there, she just calls it a day. She writes 5 days a week and does give herself breaks. So basically a 5-day work week like everyone else does, and then the weekends give herself 2 days off. Now I don't know if she does that exactly like that, but from what I've learned, it's 5 days of just straight up working and then 2 days of self-break, which is actually pretty good. Oh, I totally forgot to mention that she does index cards for each chapter. She writes down like the chapter name and like the main highlight point of it. So kind of like a one sentence summary if you think about it. Another thing she uses too was noise cancelling headphones. Since I think I listened to like a rainy ambience because she does the same thing too. I did it like once or twice and that was it, and that was like the first week. But generally, since nobody's awake at 4 a.m. in the morning, I didn't need to use it because it's just dead quiet. And another thing is she likes to write in her kitchen desk area because the backyard has full of sunlight. She gets to see the outdoors and all that. I didn't have that the way my house is set up, but since it was kind of dark in the morning, it really didn't matter. But this window here, when I did decide to write at 6 in the morning, it did bring out light. Also, because of the whole lockdown situation, she usually wrote at cafe shops, but because of safety, she decided to write in her kitchen, but also in her bed. So it worked out for me because I ran my bed anyways. That's also part of her tools thing, so I do that, and I actually had quite a bit of index cards too. Additional tools that she uses are a legal pad. Since I don't own one, I decided to use sticky notes because I have tons of them, and I actually wanted to declutter them and then get rid of them. I need more space in my room. This is something I won't be doing either since it's only a 30-day challenge, but she gives herself 3 months to write a book, and then from there she takes a long hiatus break. Another thing she does is she drinks sparkling water. I don't own any, and I don't think I ever had sparkling water, so for me I just go with water. But I think throughout the whole challenge I didn't drink any water because I do intermittent fasting and I just didn't feel any thirst to drink. Now her advice, this is something's kind of funny. One of her was her dad told her once, let's see who the a-hole is when it comes to dealing with her writing. Whenever her writing is just giving her issues, she just likes to remind herself that. It's quite funny. Another thing is that if the story is short, let it be. Don't try to force it and try to make up for like word count or like pages. And I never thought of that before, but I actually am happy she said that, because even though the project that I'm working on for like a fun thing, I don't know how long it's gonna be. My intention was to be like a novella because I never do short stories, but then again I thought of the one time I actually did do a short story without realizing it, and that was in middle school. I wrote 10 pages long, got a C for it, and I never got it back. So that sucked, but at least I actually did write a short story for once. When writing gets hard, it doesn't mean you're a bad writer. It's just part of the process of writing a novel. That's actually pretty good advice. I never heard an author say that before. And since I'm on my second year of writing my novel, I'm understanding more of like, it's just the writing process of what I'm struggling and understanding more of the craft. So it just feels good just to hear that. Her next advice is write out of order depending on your emotional capacity for that day. That is something quite useful, because even my own writing days, I've had days where I've been like happy and then I just want to write something happy, and the days when I've been like kind of depressed ish or just kind of like in a bad mood, and I kind of write with that feeling set in mind with the scene or something. So when you try to force something when you're just not feeling it and you need to write, it's better just to follow it and write a scene out, even if it's like not part of your novel, but just get it off your chest and hold on to it for like a new story or something. And her last advice is you can write a lot in 20 minutes. Well, we'll see. So here's my experience of writing like Rachel Hawkins for 30 days. Now normally I write down every single day of what I've done or any key moments that have changed from the usual schedule. But since I actually did all of this on my blog, and I can't really take note of what days were really significant or not because they kind of just blend together, you can look it up on that. I'll have the link down below in the description, and you can just see how long and what differences I made and all that. They're pretty short, so they're not that long. Like I say, like under like 500 words. So because of like the first couple of days of not understanding her routine, I try to follow doing her writing at 7 in the morning, and it was okay because my dog, I usually take him out beforehand, so it didn't affect my schedule. And then I started the 20-minute sprints. I did this on my iPad throughout the whole entire challenge, and I set up the 20-minute alarm on the iPad itself. So when I did my first sprint, I was kind of struggling because I kind of wasn't awake when I was doing it, and when the timer went off, I think I gave myself around like 2 minutes of a break, and then I was back on working on the second sprint. And then from there, just did that for the third sprint too, and then just kind of called it a day, because I wasn't like in the headspace to write, and I wasn't quite sure where my story was going to. I was quite surprised of like how much I wrote on the first sprint for 20 minutes. By the time I finished the third sprint, I think I had around like 800 words roughly. That was quite surprising because I didn't think I would write that much in just an hour, even though it was broken up to 20 minutes. And noticed like around like the second and third sprint, my headspace will kind of get better, and then I'll end up getting more ideas. And I definitely wrote out of order too, because I just wanted to focus on like the fun parts of it, rather than try to decide what I was gonna write and then waste time and then not write at all, because I've done that before. By the end of day 1, I just went to start like slowly and then try to do better for the next couple of days. So by the third day, I think I actually just did it my way. So I noticed that I ended up changing it to my way, because waiting until 7 in the morning to write was like basically the same issue I was having with Stephen King's, to where the whole waiting thing just made me not want to write at all. Whereas if I wrote down at 4 or 5 in the morning, I was pretty much good, or even 6 as well. By the end of the first week, I think I got down like 3,000 words or something like that, because I started with around roughly 5,000 words. It was nice to see that I was actually building progress in my story and building the word count, because I did this all in Scrivener, the app, iOS. I liked that it gave me the word count feature, which was actually pretty nice. And then I put it all, like the amount of exact words I've written, on the blog as well. By the second week, it was basically the same thing of basically writing every day. And I think one of those days where I actually pushed myself to keep writing until I hit the 2,000 mark, which I actually wrote over that, which made me happy. And I know that it wasn't perfect, but at least I had like a rough draft of what I wanted to write for that. There was 2 days where I didn't write at all, because I was actually following a routine of just taking 2 days off. It was kind of like a good thing, but also a bad thing for me, because it kind of like lost momentum of writing, even though for the majority I was kind of struggling to write at all, because I just wasn't passionate about it like I once was. So that kind of like set me back a bit. However, the word count still kept going up regardless, so that was a good thing. And also I kept writing so many different scenes of what came to mind or what I was like focusing on. The second and third week, some of the days I actually jotted down notes on the sticky pad, basically of questions I need to look up for research wise, and then also questions of basically to look up. Like one of the scenes I have was about the Nutcracker, and I had this thought of what is the protocol to actually enter the dress code and all that, because I actually know some of like a Broadway musical, because my school that I went to for high school did plays all the time, because we don't have an actual like Broadway theater like New York or like in Chicago, you know, those places. So I knew the city that I set in actually does have a Broadway, and I actually been to it, but I never been to the actual Broadway aspect of it. I went to the, what was it, the Incredibles ice skate arena thing that they had years ago when I was a kid. So I need to look up on the website what the design is and all that way I have a better visual grasp, and then also made more sense and more realistic in the setting itself. The problem I had was that when it comes to sticky notes, I write chicken scratch and my brother always complains about that and makes fun of it. So that would hinder me. Back to what I was saying. The sticky notes. So basically, when I finished the challenge and I was actually slowly decluttering them, I was struggling so much with what I wrote because I write fast, but at the same time I can't read my handwriting majority of the time. So that hindered me. So I think I wrote 7 days, I think, out of this whole challenge of just like jotting down notes when I had it. I did try to do the index cards. I think I did like the first 2 or 3 and then I just gave up. For me, it didn't make sense because I didn't know like where the story was heading. I don't know ahead of time. I'm basically one of those people that kind of writes the seat of their pants, but at the same time I don't like that saying because it's not truly accurate for me. I'm more of an intuitive writer and I know like the core bits of it, but not the little bit in betweens. I discover more when the characters release more information to me, and I wasn't getting much from them, but also it was a setback to my dispassionate of the project because I just wasn't feeling it. I was kind of like basically recuperating from the revision. It was bad, but also it was okay because I know that doing the challenge I didn't have any pressure to get the draft done in 30 days. So that was a good thing that I made the best call to do. For the rest of the challenge, I did like the first 3 sprints and then I just called it a day. There was another day where I think I tried to push more. I hit like around 1400, I think. And those were actually the good days. That I was like really like wide awake and it was just like super packed of just like wanting to write something fun and interesting that wouldn't like leave me. So that was pretty good. By the end of this challenge, I managed to hit 21,000 words or something like that. Even though that's like half a draft, I'm actually pretty proud of myself because I didn't realize like how much I've written over the 30 days. Well, technically 28 since I didn't do 2 days. But seeing it on my Scrivener of the like overall draft count that I've set up, I was quite shocked. It kind of motivated me to want to write more, but I knew that this was like a project that I was going to hold back for a bit and then slowly build as more came in. Now the pros of this challenge, I got to see what my good days of word count for writing was versus my bad days. So for me, my bad days of writing, I can manage up 800 words roughly if I were to do like an hour of writing. And my good days went from 1400 to the 2000 mark. Maybe if I were to do like an hour and 20 minutes, but in an hour I got roughly like 1400 to 1500. That was pretty cool of logging in the days and noticing the patterns because I never actually noticed like how much I wrote in a day versus doing this challenge. 20 minutes you actually can write quite a lot. I didn't notice like in 20 minutes I could write up to 500 words or like 300 if I was having like a really bad day. I always thought that I can only write like two paragraphs, but it turns out no, I actually write more than that. So basically a quarter of a 2000 word count if I was doing it that way. So that was also a neat thing too, and it also made me feel better that even my bad days I can actually write quite a bit and then over time it builds up. The key to getting your word count in or even doing the sprints of writing is basically knowing what you're gonna write. If you don't know what you're gonna write beforehand, as Micah Stivaler says, you're not gonna be able to write anything and also just waste around ruminating and all that. So I basically kept that in mind too while I was doing the challenges of trying to force myself to write something, but at least something that I could at least write about, and then that's when the juices start to flow and all that. I like the flexibility of this challenge. Doing the whole 20-minute hour sprint, and then if you didn't hit the word count, deciding whether you're gonna keep pushing or just call it a day. So majority I did call it a day because my schedule did fluctuate a bit. I was also doing my Scrivener app challenge for 30 days too while I was doing this one. So I was doing back and forth with that, and then basically working on YouTube to do my backup videos when school came to be, which is around the corner as I'm doing this video. So when this thing comes up, probably when I'm in school, I always felt better knowing that I wrote something than nothing. And even if it was like an hour, 20-minute sprints, just gave me a break. When you're writing, you don't see how much you've written, but then when you're going at like say even like a week or two of just writing, and then you look at the word count, you realize how much you started to what you've made now. So that was a wide opening for me to see. Now the cons of this. I'm praising about the 20-minute sprints, which I like. The problem is it felt annoying to set up the timer and then just rush into the Scrivener app. So that kind of drove me nuts. And then also I noticed that when my brain went blank of what else to write about, I actually was looking at timers. I was like, okay, how much do I have left? So I kept on doing that quite a bit when I could have like tried to go back on my writing and then see what's blocking me to writing more. So while it was good, it was also a bad thing for me. The 5-10 minute break, I basically didn't do that. I did like less than 2 minutes. Doing 3 rounds of 20 minutes was kind of a bit of an overkill for me because I felt that 20 minutes was a bit too short for me. If I would have had like say 25 or like 30 and just do 2 sprints of that, I could get an hour done and then just call it a day faster. Because when I'm like ruminating and thinking about where the story is going and all that, I actually take a lot longer to think than I do with writing, and you need to think in order to write. And because I don't pre-plan strictly of how the character is going to do this and that, because it doesn't work at all, it takes me a longer process. Maybe if I would have done more sprints, it probably wouldn't have been that bad, but it just didn't work for me. Waiting in the morning for like 7:15 to start writing was basically a nuisance because I'm just like, oh, I gotta wait, and then kill time, and it just didn't make sense. The index cards, I gave up completely. It makes more sense for me to have the corkboard on Scrivener. That way when I look at the chapters like overview, it shows me the synopsis of what I've written, and that way it kind of just like refreshes my brain and then knows like, okay, I need to work on this and that. So I prefer that. Sticky notes, I hated that too because I just can't read my handwriting. And I write faster on the keyboard than I do typing without looking on the screen. So I get down my thoughts down faster while doing that than doing the sticky notes by hand. Plus it cramps my wrist and fingers because I'm trying to erase down everything I have before it just like goes out. Sticky notes, I kind of lost them and I couldn't keep track of what sticky note I wrote for something specific that I was looking for. So I'm like trying to like go over my sticky notes, and I had about like 10 of them, I think. So what I'm going to keep from this routine, basically for days that I don't feel like writing or I'm in a tight squeeze before I have to like do an errand or something unexpected happens, jotting down of like 5 to 10 minutes of writing or even 20 minutes is better than nothing. Or even if I'm really on a crunch time, then writing down like 1 sentence. That I consider writing for the day, because even though it's not much of a big word count, the fact that you write every day will add up towards your goal. For future stories that I have in mind, I'll basically have the mindset of keeping them like a short novella, which a novella is typically under 150 words, and a novel is over 200 words, like 200 pages, sorry. So I'll start with that mindset of having a novella, because I really don't know what story is going to end up being short or what's going to be longer. But keeping in mind starting with a novella of a draft first, and if it ends up being longer into like a novel, that's great. If it ends up being a novella, it's still good, because I'm not setting myself up to fail of having like, it needs to be a novel, it needs to be this amount of pages. And if you've seen my writing draft, you'll understand what I'm talking about. What I'm also keeping throughout this challenge is just being more flexible with my writing routine, and also for days that I'm having good days, keep on going. For days that I'm not doing so well, just have something jotted down and then just move forward, and the next day I could write more. Now the things I'm gonna ditch, definitely the sticky notes. I just keep doing Scrivener and OneNote or even Apple Notes, and then just transfer when I need to, because it's just much easier. The Pomodoro method doesn't really work for me, but if I was in a crunch time, then I would use it for like just that one session only, and then nothing more. Taking long breaks. Even though I mentioned before that her first draft of 3 months and then she takes her long break, for me that does not work. If you've seen my draft and my revision, you will understand about that too. And I think I mentioned this also in my writing journey. I'll have them linked on the description or in the end cards. So check those out, so it makes more sense of how much I've grown and what I've learned and all that. Index cards, not for me, but doing it on the Scrivener makes more sense. And I can always continue doing my outline as I write the chapters in. And that's something I started doing when I did my revision. Logging my word count, I'm not going to do that anymore, because now I have a better understanding of how my word counts are going to be roughly for the other day. I mean, it was a good thing I actually learned about it, but I have no use for it no more, since I know generally what my patterns of writing are. My overall thoughts of the challenge is that I really enjoy it. Maybe I'll do more of writing like the authors for 30 days when I'm like not working on my novel, or maybe I'll do it while I'm working on my novel. It basically depends on where I'm at and what I feel like an urge to do. My goal is every year to at least do 2 authors and write like them, because I want to continue learning and also grow as a writer and take tips that maybe that I'm be struggling, and then just hear their advice, kind of just like awakens my mind and be like, oh, okay, you know, because I actually had that since doing the Magister Vater and Stephen King, and now this one. This was a really fun challenge because I'm not restricted, like I said, of working my novel, and this was just basically for fun while keeping my skills sharp. I came out with this challenge having a stronger mindset of what my style is, how I operate, and continue to get better. And also, I actually have a third of my first draft for my fun project done already. So that was a great thing about it. If you guys are interested in doing this challenge, let me know in the comments below and tag me on social media. I really want to see how your experience was and all that. And check out my blog of like how my days were, and you'll see it's like where I had my good days and where I had my bad days. It was kind of crazy, and I'll definitely do more blogging when I do new author challenges. So when you see them up on my blog, definitely subscribe to my newsletter. That way you get first dibs on when I actually do the challenge versus waiting on when I actually film and upload onto the channel, because I do these like in advance, and since I have a lot of videos that I need to go over, it takes me quite a while. That was my experience of writing like Rachel Hawkins for 30 days. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.